He has a few questions tailored specifically for African American genealogy. He's seeking help to unlock local St. Louis library resources. He's tracing ancestors who may have lived in Mississippi, Alabama, and surrounding states. He's got four parts to his question, so we can do them one at a time. Number
I'm
one, and
looking
I
at them.
think, okay, Robin, this is going to be you. What
Okay.
local St. Louis library collections can help trace African American ancestors who migrated from Mississippi or Alabama to St. Louis during the Great Migration from 1910 to about 1970?
Okay. So I'm going to just go down the line here and I will give you just, briefly information from sort of the library end of it. And then if anybody else wants to jump in, please feel free. So question number one with St. Louis County Library Collections for African American ancestors, and this is going to be Great Migration. So this is going to be 1910 to 1970. So for that, I would definitely, because we're in the age of censuses and all kinds of things that you can find on the databases. So I'm not sure if this particular researcher, I'm not sure what he has been doing thus far, but I would say very important to mine everything that is coming up on these family members in Ancestry. So if you don't have, this is for anyone too, if you don't have your own Ancestry.com account, the library does provide Ancestry Library Edition, which would have access to all of those census records and things like that for at least to kind of begin this research. Also, FamilySearch.org is going to be another one to dig in on maybe specific records from certain counties. And we are a Family Search affiliate library. So if there's anything that you can't see at home, you would be able to see that at the library. So when I talk about Family Search, I don't necessarily talk about searching for a person by name, although that can be helpful. You could see if other people in the tree, are researching that person, and some records will come up. But the catalog, where you're drilling down to a particular place, like a Tishomingo County, Mississippi, for example, and you can see exactly what records they have, marriage records, things like that for that county, would be very helpful. Keeping in mind also that Family Search on most of their record sets now have full text searching, so that is going to be helpful as well. Number two, St. Louis-based resources help identify enslaved African Americans before the 1870 census. So this is always a tough, definitely advanced type of genealogy research because the regular methods aren't going to be effective. It's going to be drilling down to, possibly plantation records or, wills and things like that. I do want to mention, though, that the library has some tools for you that I would like you to check out if you aren't aware of these. So on our YouTube channel, and you can get to these either just the St. Louis County Library YouTube or on our virtual classroom on our website, we have a series of 4 programs that you can watch for doing African American genealogy. One is just a beginning course, but then we have 3 others that are more advanced. And the last one does go into looking specifically at records pre-1870. So I would definitely recommend watching those. There was an employee, a staff member here at the History and Genealogy Department who is now retired, but he was an expert in doing this African American research. And so we've saved those videos up there because they are still very relevant. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention, when you're dealing with the time period, say like 1864, 65 to 1870, there are also things out there such as Freedmen's Bureau records, Freedmen's Bank records, things like that. It really kind of just depends on what state, and a lot of those things you can find online as well. Another important one, because about 200,000 Black men enrolled in the Union Army. Getting pension records and things like that for those individuals are fantastic sources of information too. So looking at that would be good as well. I also want to mention that we have some programs coming up in February. One is just a beginning African American genealogy course that is taking place at the Lewis and Clark branch in February. But then we're bringing in a speaker, LaDonna Garner, who is a professional genealogist, and she will be talking about specific issues for African American research. That is going to be a virtual class over Zoom. That would be a fantastic one for you to attend. And I was in the process of looking up the exact date for that class right before I started talking. So if anybody else on the panel wants to go on our website, that should be showing on our events and classes. If anybody else wants to chime in with the date of that program, that would be great. Number 3, African American resources, local resources. So churches, funeral homes, community organizations. So cemeteries, if you have, and the St. Louis Genealogical Society is involved in this too, cemeteries like Washington Park, other St. Louis area cemeteries, there are records for those, funeral homes as well. We have I know that the society has some of these things indexed, so you might want to check on their website for that. I don't know that we have any specific African American church records in the library, so you might need to contact churches for that. Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
We probably have some of those as well. We have a lot of churches out there, but
Okay. Perfect. And then as far as just community resources, there is a St. Louis Historical and Genealogical Society, St. Louis African American Historical and Genealogical Society. They meet once a month on Saturdays at the Missouri Historical Society's library. Or they might meet at the museum. I'm not sure if they meet at the museum or if they meet at the library. But if you haven't checked them out, they bring in speakers, and that would be a great place to ask specific questions about African American research as well. They have a Facebook page, so you might want to ask to be admitted to their Facebook page too. And then African American newspapers, oral history collections, or vertical files. So we don't really have vertical files per se anymore. We definitely may have some print materials that may help you. Oral history collections, we don't hold at the library. So it would be, something that you could find online. But I have researched African American ancestors for people, and I have found some great oral history collections for some other states. And then as far as African American newspapers, there are some that are digitized. The St. Louis Argus comes to mind, and there are a couple that we also have on microfilm, and you can find that on our website too. But the Argus was one of the biggest ones, and some of that is digitized, although I'm not sure exactly what years on that.
Robin, your beginning African American genealogy is on Thursday, February 12th from 6 to 7 at the Lewis and Clark branch.
Okay. And what about the LaDonna Garner's talk? Do you see that one on there?
I see that one Wednesday, February 18th, 6 to 7 p.m.
Yeah,
Okay.
unique issues for African American genealogy research.
Yes.
Okay.
So that one probably covers everything in this in this Q&A. So I would definitely finish that one if you can.
I'd like to also mention that the St. Louis Public Library, which is a different library than St. Louis County Library, has a huge African American collection, and someone who is interested in that kind of research should get on their website as well. Plus, I might mention that LaDonna Garner used to be the head of our African American SIG, but she no longer lives in St. Louis, so that's a little difficult for her to do.
Yeah. And I'd like to add also that if you're using Family Search, one of the best parts of that website is their wiki. And if you use the Family Search wiki to look for African American genealogy, it's going to give you links to just dozens and dozens and dozens of records and state organizations and all kinds of stuff. And it's totally free.
And one more thing I want to add, and then I know we probably need to move on. Carol mentioned the St. Louis Public Library. If you are local and you do want to visit them, they are located downtown. Their central branch, that is where their history and genealogy department is.
Okay. One more thing, Robin. Keith says thank you. And he also wanted to know if the library can help him use technology such as genealogy databases, DNA interpretation tools, or mapping software to connect African American families across Missouri, Mississippi, and Alabama.
So genealogy databases, an enthusiastic yes. DNA interpretation tools. So unfortunately, our DNA expert has taken a position elsewhere and he's going to be leaving us at some point here. So DNA interpretation, probably not as strong on that. The mapping software, I may be able to, that may be a thing, but yes. So, but definitely the databases for sure.
And
Jump in, Carol.
the St. Louis Genealogy Society has plenty of people who can help you with both the genealogy databases and DNA and technology.
And mapping as well.
And mapping. So if you come to our office, the other Jim Bellinger, is one of our experts on DNA and also on mapping.